Hello, my friends. Big welcome to English Narratives Academy. So glad you're here with us. Get ready to travel back in time today. We're going to learn about Benito Mussolini. He was a really important person from the last century, the 1900s. This guy became a big leader in his country, and the stuff he did changed things for the whole world. We'll start from when he was just a kid in Italy and see how he grew up to be this powerful leader they called Il Duce. We'll check out the choices he made, some that helped people and some that hurt them a lot, and how those choices changed history. This is a super way to practice your English. We're using easy words and sentences that aren't too long, so you can follow along no problem. You'll pick up new words and get better at understanding when people speak English while you listen to this cool story. All right, let's jump right into when he was a young boy in Italy.
Chapter 1. A young boy in Italy. Benito Mussolini was born on a warm summer day, July 29th, in the year 1883. Imagine Italy at that time. It was not as modern as it is today. Many people lived in small towns and worked on farms or in simple jobs. Benito's birthplace was a little village called Dovia di Predapio. This village was in the countryside, where life moved at a slower pace. His father, Alessandro Mussolini, was a strong man who worked as a blacksmith. A blacksmith is someone who works with hot metal like iron to make tools and other things. Alessandro was also a man with strong opinions about how the country should be run. He liked to talk about politics, which is about how people govern themselves. He had ideas that were different from the government at that time. Benito's mother, Rosa Maltoni, was a kind and gentle woman. She was a school teacher. Being a teacher was a respected job, and Rosa cared deeply about education. She taught children in the village and believed in the importance of learning. She was also a religious person and tried to create a calm and stable home for her family. Young Benito was a very energetic child. He had a lot of energy and was often getting into mischief. He was a smart boy, his mind worked quickly, but he also had a very strong will. This means that when he wanted something, it was hard to change his mind. At school, he was often the one causing trouble. He wasn't afraid to argue with his teachers or even fight with other children. He had a fiery personality, like a small flame that could easily become big. However, even though he was sometimes difficult, Benito was also a curious and bright student. He enjoyed reading books and learning new things. History was one of his favorite subjects. He liked to read about famous leaders and important events from the past. He would imagine himself being like those powerful figures. These early stories and ideas stayed with him as he grew older. Life in Dovia di Predapio was simple. Families lived close together and helped each other. People worked hard every day. The sounds of the countryside, like farm animals and the wind, were common. But young Benito felt that there was a bigger world outside his small village. He dreamed of seeing more, of doing important things. He had a feeling that he was meant for something greater than the quiet life around him. The mix of his father's strong political views and his mother's focus on education and calm created a unique environment for young Benito. He learned about power and ideas from his father and the value of knowledge from his mother. These early years, growing up in a small Italian village with these two different influences, helped to shape the complex and ambitious man he would eventually become. His childhood experiences, both the good and the challenging, were the first steps on his long and eventful journey. Chapter 2. Becoming a teacher and a writer. After he finished his schooling, Benito Mussolini took on the job of a teacher for a little while. He moved to different small towns in Italy to teach children. He stood in front of classrooms and shared his knowledge with young students. However, this job did not keep his interest for very long. He felt that something else was calling him, something more exciting, and where he could have a bigger impact. He felt a strong desire to do more than just teach in a small village. Benito was good at talking, and he was also good at writing. He had a way with words. He started to write for newspapers. Newspapers are a way to share news and opinions with many people. Benito wrote about what was happening in the country and about different social problems. He also wrote about politics, sharing his strong beliefs and ideas. His writing was often full of energy, and he said things directly, without being afraid to express what he thought. Working as a journalist, someone who writes for newspapers, gave Benito the chance to travel. He moved around Italy and met many different kinds of people. He saw how they lived and learned about the difficulties they faced. He started to become very interested in a political idea called socialism. Socialism is about the idea that everyone should be more equal and that workers should have more rights. This idea seemed important to him as he saw the struggles of ordinary people. His writing started to get noticed. People began to read what he wrote and talk about his ideas. He became known for using powerful words that could make people feel strongly. This time in his life, working as a teacher and then as a writer was very important for him. It helped him to become a better communicator. He learned how to speak and write in a way that could influence people and make them think about things differently. He was learning how to use his words to get his ideas across. During this period, his own political ideas began to take shape. He was reading a lot and thinking deeply about how society worked. He was starting to move away from some of the traditional socialist ideas he had first been interested in. He began to think that Italy needed a strong leader, someone who could make quick decisions and bring back a sense of national pride and order. He felt that the country needed to be more powerful and respected in the world. His experiences as a teacher, where he had to lead a classroom, and as a writer, where he could reach many people with his words, were preparing him for a bigger role. He was learning how to lead and how to persuade. These skills would become very important in his future as he started to move towards a path of great power and influence in Italy. This time of writing and teaching was a crucial step in his journey. Chapter 3. Moving towards power. As Benito Mussolini continued his work as a writer and speaker, his ideas about politics started to change direction. He began to think that the traditional ideas of socialism were not the best way for Italy. Instead, he started to develop his own way of thinking about how the country should be run. He increasingly believed that Italy needed a very strong leader to bring back order and make the nation great and powerful again. He looked back at the Roman Empire, a time when Italy was a dominant force, and wanted to bring back that kind of strength. A big event happened that changed the world. World War I from 1914 to 1918. Italy was involved in this war, and after it ended, the country faced many serious problems. The economy was not doing well, and many people did not have jobs. There was a lot of unhappiness and unrest among the people. Different groups had different ideas about how Italy should move forward, and there was no clear agreement. Benito Mussolini saw this time of trouble as an opportunity. He believed he had the answers for Italy's problems. In 1919, he started his own political group called the Fascist Party. The Fascists had a clear message. They promised to bring back order, make Italy strong again, and create a sense of national pride. They said they would fix the economy and make the country respected by other nations. The Fascist Party grew quite quickly. Many people were attracted to their ideas, especially those who were worried about the rise of socialist groups and those who felt that Italy had been weakened after the war. Former soldiers, who were used to order and discipline, also joined the fascist movement. They wore special black shirts as a symbol of their group. The fascists were not afraid to use force and threats to get what they wanted and to scare their political opponents. This use of violence and intimidation helped them gain attention and power. Mussolini became the clear leader of this growing movement. He was a very good speaker. He could stand in front of large crowds of people and give powerful speeches that made them feel excited and hopeful. He promised them a strong Italy, a return to the glories of the past, and a better future. His strong personality and his confident words convinced many people to follow him. He was able to connect with their feelings and their desire for a better life for Italy. This period was a turning point for Mussolini. He was no longer just a writer or a teacher. He was now a political leader, building a movement that aimed to take control of the country. He was using his skills in speaking and organizing to gain power and influence. The path toward becoming the leader of Italy was becoming clearer for Benito Mussolini and the Fascist Party. Chapter 4. The March on Rome. By the year 1922, Benito Mussolini and the Fascist Party had become a significant force in Italy. They had gained many supporters and were becoming more and more bold. They felt that the government at the time was weak and not able to solve Italy's problems. Mussolini believed it was time for him and his party to take control of the country. To show their strength and put pressure on the government, the fascists organized a big event called the March on Rome. This was not really a march in the way we might think of a peaceful protest. Instead, it was more like a show of force. Thousands of fascist supporters from all over Italy were told to travel towards Rome, the capital city of Italy. Many of these men were members of the fascist groups who wore their black shirts. They traveled by train, by truck, and even on foot. The government in Rome was very worried about this. They saw these armed groups moving toward the capital and feared that there would be violence and chaos. The prime minister at the time asked King Victor Emmanuel III, who was a ruler of Italy, to order the army to stop the fascists from entering Rome. The army was much stronger than the fascist groups, and they could have likely stopped them. However, King Victor Emmanuel III was in a difficult position. He was afraid that if he ordered the army to fire on the fascists, it could lead to a civil war, a war where people from the same country fight each other. He was also possibly influenced by some people who thought that Mussolini and the fascists could bring order back to Italy. So, instead of telling the army to stop the march, the king made a surprising decision. He decided to ask Benito Mussolini to become the new prime minister of Italy. This was a huge victory for Mussolini and the Fascist Party. They had used the threat of force to achieve their political goals. A man who had gained power through his own political movement and the use of intimidation was now the leader of the Italian government. The March on Rome was a very important event in Italian history. It showed that Mussolini was willing to break the traditional rules of politics and use any means necessary to get power. It marked the beginning of a period where Italy would be ruled by the Fascist Party, with Mussolini as its strong leader. This event demonstrated how a determined group, using a show of force and exploiting the weaknesses of the existing government, could seize control of a nation. It was a clear sign that Italy was moving towards a different and more authoritarian future. Chapter 5. Becoming the leader. After the March on Rome, Benito Mussolini was now the Prime Minister of Italy. He had achieved a great deal of power, but he wanted even more. He began to work quickly to take complete control of the country. He wanted to make Italy a nation where he was the only leader and where his fascist party had total authority. One of the first things Mussolini did was to gradually take away the democratic systems that were in place. He stopped people from speaking freely. He made it illegal to criticize the government. Newspapers and radio stations were controlled by the Fascist Party, so they could only say what Mussolini wanted them to say. Political opponents, people who disagreed with Mussolini, were often arrested and put in jail. Some were even killed. Mussolini gave himself the title El Duce, which means a leader in Italian. He wanted people to see him as a strong and powerful figure, someone who was always right and always knew what was best for Italy. He used a tool called propaganda to help create this image. Propaganda is when information is spread to influence what people think. The government made posters, movies, and radio shows that showed Mussolini as a hero and the Fascist Party as the best thing for Italy. The government began to control almost every part of life in Italy. Schools taught children to be loyal to Mussolini and the Fascist Party. Workers were told what to do and how to do it. Even free time and entertainment were influenced by fascist ideas. Young people were taught to believe in fascism from a very early age. They were encouraged to join youth groups and wear fascist uniforms. This process of teaching people to only believe in one set of ideas is called indoctrination. Some people in Italy liked what Mussolini was doing. They believed that he was bringing order and stability to the country. They felt that things were better organized and that Italy was becoming stronger. However, many others were afraid of his strong rule. They knew that they had lost their freedom and that they could be punished for speaking out against the government. Mussolini's rise to power shows how a person who is good at speaking and who uses force and propaganda can take control of a nation. He used the problems in Italy to his advantage and convinced many people that he was the only one who could solve them. He created a system where he was the all-powerful leader and where people had little say in how the country was run. This period was a dark time for Italy, where freedom was lost and one man held all the power. Chapter 6: Achievements and Changes in Italy. During the time that Mussolini was the leader of Italy, his government did make some changes and accomplish certain things in the country. It's important to look at these things to get a full picture of his rule, even while remembering that these achievements came with a lack of freedom for many people. One area where Mussolini's government put a lot of effort was in building things for the public. They started many big projects, like building new roads that connected different parts of Italy. This made it easier for people to travel and for businesses to move goods around the country. They also built bridges, which helped people cross rivers and valleys more easily. New schools were constructed in different towns and cities, which meant more children had access to education. Additionally, the government worked on draining swampy areas. These areas were often unhealthy and could not be used for farming. By draining them, they created more land that could be used to grow food. The government also tried to improve Italy's economy. They wanted to create more jobs and reduce the number of people who were unemployed. They introduced some programs that were meant to help people who did not have work. They also focused on making Italy more self-sufficient, meaning they wanted Italy to produce more of its own goods instead of relying on other countries. Mussolini's government also introduced some social welfare programs. These were programs designed to help people in need. For example, they created unemployment benefits, which provided some money to people who had lost their jobs. They also worked on improving health care for the population. These initiatives were seen by some as positive steps towards taking care of the Italian people. Another big focus for Mussolini was on making Italy a strong and proud nation. He put a lot of resources into building up the military. He wanted Italy to be seen as a powerful country on the world stage. He often talked about the glories of the Roman Empire and wanted to bring back that sense of national pride and strength. However, it is crucial to remember that these achievements happened under a system where people did not have many freedoms. The government controlled information, and people could not openly disagree with Mussolini. The focus on military strength would eventually lead Italy into a dangerous war. So, while some positive changes and developments did occur in Italy during Mussolini's rule, they were achieved through a system that took away people's basic rights and freedoms. It's important to consider both the achievements and the methods used to achieve them when looking at this period in history. Chapter 7: Personal Life, Relationships, and Family. Benito Mussolini's life outside of politics was also quite complicated. He was married 2 times. His first wife was named Ida Duce. They had a son together. However, their relationship was not happy, and it ended badly. Later in his life, Mussolini even tried to make people forget that Ida existed. His second wife was Rochelle Guidi. She was a different kind of person than Ida. Rochelle was more traditional and provided a more stable home life for Mussolini. Together, they had 5 children: Etta, Vittorio, Bruno, Romano, and Anna Maria. Rochelle seemed to offer him some peace and normalcy amidst his busy and powerful life. Besides his wives, Mussolini was known to have many other romantic relationships with different women. These were often kept secret from the public because the government controlled what people knew. His children experienced life in different ways because their father was the leader of the country. Some of them became involved in politics or the military, while others tried to live more private lives away from the public eye. Being Mussolini's child came with both advantages and disadvantages. Their family life was closely tied to his political career, and the pressures of him being a powerful leader often affected their relationships with him and with each other. His personal life, with its complicated relationships and family dynamics, was another layer to the story of this influential figure. Chapter 8. Italy in World War II. In the late 1930s, Benito Mussolini made a very important decision that would change the course of Italy's history. He formed a close partnership with Adolf Hitler, the leader of Nazi Germany. Germany was becoming very powerful in Europe, and Mussolini wanted Italy to be powerful too. This partnership meant that Italy and Germany would work together and support each other. This group of countries was called the Axis powers. In 1939, World War II began in Europe. At first, Italy did not join the war. But in 1940, Mussolini decided that Italy should also enter the war. He thought that the war would be quick and that Italy could gain more land and become even more powerful by fighting alongside Germany. He hoped for easy victories. However, the Italian military was often not well prepared for such a big war. They faced many defeats in different parts of the world. For example, they struggled in North Africa and in Greece. The war effort put a lot of pressure on Italy. The country did not have enough resources to fight a long war. Food and other important supplies became difficult to get for ordinary people. Many Italians became unhappy with the war and with Mussolini's leadership. They saw that the war was not going well and that it was causing a lot of suffering. As the war continued, the countries fighting against Germany and Italy, called the Allied forces, became stronger. They started to win more battles. In 1943, the Allied forces invaded Italy. They landed in the south of the country and began to move north. This was a major turning point. Italy was now a battlefield in the war. The invasion by the Allies showed that Mussolini's power was weakening. Many people in Italy had lost faith in him and his decisions. The war was not bringing glory or power, but instead, it was bringing hardship and defeat. Mussolini's decision to join World War II proved to be a terrible mistake for Italy and for his own future. The war would eventually lead to his downfall and the end of his rule. Chapter 9. The Fall of Mussolini. By the summer of 1943, things were going very badly for Italy in World War II. The Allied forces had invaded the country and were making progress in pushing the German and Italian forces back. Many people in Italy were tired of the war and the suffering it had caused. They were also losing faith in Benito Mussolini as their leader. Even some of the people within Mussolini's own fascist party began to think that he was leading Italy to ruin. They felt that he had made terrible mistakes, especially by joining the war alongside Germany. In July 1943, a group of important members of the fascist party decided to take action against Mussolini. They held a meeting and voted to remove him from power. Following this vote, Mussolini was arrested. The King of Italy, Victor Emmanuel III, who had appointed him prime minister many years before, now ordered his arrest. For a short time, it seemed that Mussolini's time as the leader of Italy was finally over. Many people celebrated his removal from power, hoping for an end to the war and a return to peace. However, the story did not end there. German forces, who were still fighting in Italy, managed to rescue Mussolini. They took him to the north of Italy, which was still under German control. There The Germans helped him set up a new, smaller government. This new state was not truly independent. It was controlled by Germany and was just a way for the Germans to try and maintain some power in Italy. But this was a desperate attempt. The Allied forces continued to advance through Italy, and the situation for Mussolini and his supporters became more and more hopeless. They were losing ground, and their control was shrinking. In April 1945, as the Allied forces were very close to capturing the area where Mussolini was, he knew that his time was running out. He tried to escape from Italy. He was traveling with his mistress, a woman named Clara Petacci, and some of his loyal followers. They were hoping to get to a safer place, perhaps to another country. However, their escape did not succeed. They were caught by Italian partisans. Partisans were people who were fighting against the fascist and German forces in Italy. These resistance fighters captured Mussolini and Clara Petacci. This capture marked the final chapter in Mussolini's dramatic and controversial life. Chapter 10: The End of a Dictator. After being captured by the Italian partisans in April 1945, Benito Mussolini and Clara Petacci were held as prisoners. The partisans had been fighting for a long time to free Italy from fascist rule and the German occupation. They believed that Mussolini was responsible for much of the suffering that the country had endured during the war. The partisans decided that Mussolini and Clara Petacci should be punished for their actions. On April 28, 1945, just a few days after their capture, they were executed. This means they were killed by the partisans. The way they were killed was a harsh and sudden end to Mussolini's life, who had once held so much power over Italy. After their execution, the bodies of Mussolini and Clara Petacci were taken to the city of Milan. In Milan, they were displayed publicly in a town square. This was a shocking and brutal sight for the people of Milan. It was meant to show everyone that Mussolini's rule was over and that his power was gone. People who had suffered under his regime came to see the bodies. Some showed anger and relief at his death. Mussolini's story is a powerful example of how someone can rise to great power, but also fall dramatically. He started as a young man with strong opinions and eventually became the dictator of Italy. He made significant changes to the country, some of which were seen as positive at the time. However, his authoritarian rule, his suppression of people's freedoms, and his decision to ally with Nazi Germany led to terrible consequences for Italy and for the world. His legacy, how people remember him, is still something that is debated. Some people in Italy might remember the roads and buildings that were constructed during his time. Others will always condemn him for the cruelty of his regime and the loss of life and freedom that occurred under his rule. His actions in World War II had a devastating impact on Italy and contributed to the immense suffering of the global conflict. The end of Benito Mussolini's life serves as a warning about the dangers of unchecked power. It highlights the importance of democracy, where people have a voice and leaders are accountable. His story reminds us that even the most powerful individuals can lose their grip on power and face the consequences of their actions. The final image of his body in a public square was a stark reminder of the ultimate price of dictatorship.